everybody, there's no jobs out there. Right?
Appalachia?
It's gold mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the kids are basically meth addicts.
Mm.
They don't have no work. So, that is like, what do you do with that? You know what I mean?
There's a movie about Appalachia coming out by the guy who did J.D. Vance. Have you heard of him?
Mm.
It's a movie about his book.
Yeah.
Which is his life growing up in Appalachia and how hard it is to find work and stuff and have dignity. And it's all about family, the family having the challenges of a globalized society, moving away from their kind of sense of well-being and stuff of what they know.
Right. I think he was raised by his grandparents. He did I saw a video of him he did
Hillbilly Elegy.
Hillbilly Elegy, yeah.
So they're making that into a movie, a Hollywood movie.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, he talks about why he thinks that, there's kind of like good and bad. There's a negative and positive, with growing up that way, right? Because you see the like I think he talked about like his grandmother was a stickler for, him not getting into trouble, hanging out with the wrong crowd, right? But he also saw a lot of his family members were, I guess for lack of a better term, they were deviants. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have any structure, or anything in their life. So, he was able to see both sides.
Yeah.
Right. And, I don't think the community that he grew up in is any different than, say, a lot of urban communities, right? That are not within the, say, upper echelons of the community or the city. You know what I'm saying? A lot of African American communities, it's the same thing, right? Like,
that's why I think the media seems to have this cynical desire to keep people divided by race. If we united, a lot of these problems could be solved in a win-win way. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people have more in common than they think.
Right.
And so they have to stoke. It kind of reminds me of like what Peter Thiel says about with restaurants when they're creating when they're in an undifferentiated market, instead of creating a monopoly, then all they do is come up with distinctions that are kind of trivial. Like I'm Pan East Asian Ethiopian fusion with Southern flair, and that's what makes my restaurant a success. But it's like, no, actually, you know what I mean? It's window dressing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but it would be, it wouldn't be too far fetched to see something like that happen.
Right,
in
especially
Seattle.
in Seattle where you're at.
Asian Ethiopian restaurant. Yeah, I could definitely see something like that in the near future. You know what I mean? But it's I mean, I agree with that. It's like kind of like when if everybody's doing the same thing, that doesn't lead to any.
That's why I'm typically suspicious of big cities the way they are now, because it's just hyper mimesis everywhere you look.
Right.
And I think the thing about having a more spread out, smaller town is that it creates a little bit more differentiation. You've got your land over here, I've got my land over there. You've got your space here, you've got that. I don't mean super, super rural. I mean, that can be, it's hard to find that balance, because each one of those different models of living, each are attacked publicly. So rural is attacked by media. And rural is attacked and said, oh, that's the place where nothing happens. And that's been the scapegoat for a long time in mass media. Because it's like what Bill Kaufman says when he talks about the idea of when they want to say that you're going to be successful in life, they'll tell a kid in high school, you're going somewhere, young man, right? And if they want to say that you're not going to do good in life, they'll say you're not going anywhere. This kid's not going anywhere. It's like we have this idea that in order to succeed, you got to leave hometown and go off to the big city.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
part of society, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I guess it's it could, it can go. I think it can go both ways, right? Like you can leave town and go to the big city and then like totally fail. You know what I mean? Or things go really bad. You know what I mean? And you end up say on the street or whatever, Skid Row or something like that. You think about like all those people that want to be actors and they go to
Harvey
Hollywood.
Weinstein, yeah, they go after
you
his.
know
It doesn't
you
end
know what
out
I mean?
right. Yeah.
And now you're just standing there on Hollywood Row or whatever it is in an Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not going nowhere,
And you
right?
get into the from the kettle into the fire, right?
Right, right.
Because you go from the evil of Harvey Weinstein, you get out of that, and you get into Jeffrey Epstein. Say, my goodness, I can't get anywhere. You got sharks everywhere you go. You know what I mean?
right,
In the
right.
big city.
So in the big city, right? And so I think, but I think at the same time, smaller cities, smaller towns, what they, I guess their challenge is, you know, not keeping up to date with what's going on.
Well, that's a good thing. There are
Technologically.
some towns out there. I know some towns that I've come from,
Yeah.
not too far down the road, where they still battling with MySpace.
You said
So
that's a good
when
thing.
you talk about big tech, they don't even worry about Facebook and Twitter since they're still wrestling with MySpace and their HTML coding problems. So,
What's the new edition
yeah.
of the
There are some towns that they're still dealing with problems like Nintendo 64 versus PlayStation.
Right, come on, man.
No, I'm not joking. There's one town I went to in small town. It was a small town, and I'm not joking. This was within 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I went into a store, and it was like a variety store, a big store, and at a strip mall, but it was a big store. And you went in there, and they had brand new Sega Genesis on the store shelf. And that was the latest edition. It wasn't that little new one that came out where they tried to bring out the Sega Genesis. I think they did that.
Yeah, like the Cube or something like that, or whatever.
It wasn't like a remix or anything. It was like the original Sega Genesis, still in the box, brand new, and that was their electronics section. And I love that kind of stuff, but because I like being able to have those enclaves where you can go back into a portal, and go into a new era.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
people, by the way, have you ever smelled smells or like seen a certain lighting in a landscape that reminds you of 80s or 90s?
Yeah, your childhood.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I so like every spring, right? I smell like the you can smell the pollen or whatever. That always reminds me of like, when I was a kid and you knew like spring was coming up, it was about to be, like Easter Sunday or something like that. It reminds me of that kind of thing, or if I smell certain foods, I knew that was like, the Sunday dinner. You know what I mean?
Or certain cigarettes remind me of like the 90s when you go into the cafes and it was still allowed to smoke inside.
The Newports.
Yeah, there's something about a particular type of cigarette. You can smell it and it triggers like, man, I'm back in time again.
Yeah,
like deeply so,
Yeah, and I mean, my thing is, look, I'm not against people. I'm not against like kids or younger generations learning how to use like older stuff, because I think a lot of the older stuff is more you have to learn how to use it, right? Because it's so bulky and so it's not as programmed, right? So you have to actually learn how to use those things, right? When you're dealing with like a cell phone or iPad or whatever, that don't really take a lot of, you don't got to go through, how many players you want to start, do this, back up, whatever, you know what I mean? There's no, so it's more, efficient in the sense that, just get them to the game, just get them to their video, whatever, right? So I think up to a certain point, it is good for kids to have kind of like a hands-on, more tangible learning. You know what I mean? And like my whole thing is like when you're doing math as a kid, like you need the whole pen and paper. So you know how to, write the numbers, do equations, stuff like that. You can't, if you're always on a computer, you're never going to learn that, right? So yeah, I mean, I do think there's a certain kind of say ability that like say smaller towns they have that, right? That sense of community, that sense of togetherness, that sense of hard work, that sense of doing things, with your hands or the labor, you know what I'm saying, figuring things out, right? I think that's good, when it comes to, people that want to do stuff like engineering and stuff like that, have those kind of foundations where you're able to do things, that are more tangible.
That's why when Tesla, he went out to Colorado Springs, remember, to do a lot of his biggest stuff.
Right.
He had to get some space out of the big city,
Yeah, he had to get some space out of the big city, and because the city is very much about programming. It's about living in the virtual world. You know what I mean? It's about being on the computer.
So it's interesting that we think of small towns as the place where they're behind, but probably a lot of the best, big innovations happen outside of the big city. In the big cities where you ramp it up and you refine it and you commercialize it and you market it,
Right. And I think this goes back to like our conversation with the whole thing about Babel, right?
Tower of Babel.
The Tower of Babel, where you got this big city and everybody is clamoring, right? And it's just scaled up, and you can't. There's no ability to think, right? And so, now it's. I think that's a kind of a foreshadowing of what happens to big cities when they, when everybody's flocking there, right? And you say the mimesis can't be controlled.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine that told me when he lived in New York that he had a friend that whenever he was on the stock market floor, trading, as soon as that bell rang or whatever, he'd say, "Get out of my way! Get out of my way! Get out of my way! Get out of my way!" And as soon as that bell was on, he was back to normal. It's like it was possessed,
You should make a little cartoon of that.
Yeah, get out of my way! Hilarious. Get out of my way! He was like the nicest guy in the world, and as soon as that time to trade, he was crazy,
He's turbo.
You can see a lot of human behavior is very mechanistic, and that's why I think, and I keep saying this, but I'm not ready to talk about it all the way yet because I want to have something ready to go fully before I start going real direct about it. Right. But that's why I think there's a physical component to mimetic desire, a physical science understanding. And that's wacky for people because we are told to be specialists. We're told that, no, if you're a chemist, you're a chemist. You don't look at nothing. Yeah. You don't look at nothing.
Right.
And you're not even just a chemist. You got to find some subcategory of a subcategory of a subcategory. Right. And you just stay there. Don't ever ask about physics. Don't you ever ask about nothing. Just shut up.
You do metallurgy.
And that is, if there's anything, I think, that is the biggest impediment to progress culturally, it's probably that specialist obsession. Mm-hmm. I disagree with that fundamentally. I disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anybody that I, would like think of as being, like academically passionate, it would be somebody that is sort of a polymath, that's kind of has his hands in a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why every school should just turn their mascot into Merlin. You know what I mean? You get the magician. You know what I mean? Somebody that, the character that wants to find, you know, the power in everything. You know what I mean? It's not just this one thing. It's not just, well, if I'm a theologian, I only know Greek, Latin, Hebrew, Aramaic, and nobody else can touch that, because that's a sacred cow. You know what I mean? If I'm a chemist, then I'm gonna be, the dean and the head of that department. You know what I mean? I have all the knowledge. I know the periodic table left to right. You know what I mean?
But that's the detriment to why we can't know anything. Like, for example, Dr. Chris Palmer, the MD Harvard psychiatrist that I've had on the radio, he says, that we have thought for years the paradigm of what causes mental illness was a genetic based thing. And he says, in my research and my clinical experience, it's not genetic. We're finding out that it's actually mitochondrial based. It's based on your metabolism, how you're feeding your body, how you're dealing with your metabolic situation. Now, think about that for a second. Just think, how many folks are dealing with depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, and the people that they're trained to deal with them, they only know that narrow confinement of what is the issue, what chemical can we rearrange to block that feeling or something. And instead of saying, wait a second, maybe, and they don't even question the genetic foundation. They're just figuring out how to tinker with your chemical makeup, as opposed to saying, maybe if you change the fuel, it might have a holistic effect that will clear up problems in your gums and in your brain. Whoa, your mindset, your whole mental health might change. And he's found that people that he gets on ketogenic diet, as long as they stay with it, he doesn't call it a cure, because a cure is something you take and then it goes away and you don't have to keep taking it. But as long as you stay in therapeutic ketosis, he has been able to treat his patients with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression. He said that one of it, like this guy had severe voices, and another woman, severe voices, the voices went away through changing the diet alone. Now, think about that. Like that, he's just one voice, and there's a few out there doing that. But look at how much hurdles they have to overcome because of specialist training. That says that has no place with psychiatric care.
But that's the prophet story, right? That's
so how do we make the prophet normal, though? Like, how do we make that the standard? Are you telling me that we're never going to have medical paradigm change?
You'll have it, right? But it's kind of like it's all, I don't want to always, I have to be careful not to draw on biblical narrative for these things, because you don't want to be like, well, look what happened to the prophets. They only got it after they got captured by the Babylonians or something like that. You know what I mean? But I do think that there's something to that effect, right? We only a society only kind of recognizes its problems when it's kind of like too late or something. You know what I mean? And of course, Jesus speaks of that, right? When he speaks to Peter, he said, you deny me 3 times, right? But for him, like, it's okay though, because you don't know what you're doing. Like, it's just a reaction. I get it. You know what I mean? It's just cool, because you're gonna be the head guy that's gonna lead this thing, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's I mean, when you listen to certain people, you listen to people that are not necessarily that are marginalized or whatever, ostracized within their field. Sometimes you want to take their side just because they're marginalized. Sometimes you want to take their side because you really feel like what they're saying is true. And what they're saying might actually have some credibility, right? But at even then, it's like, what difference is it going to make if they can't get the funding or the backing? You see what I'm saying? You have to have people who have capital, who have money to put into that, to give it some.
You gotta make profits with the profits, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta, you know. Well, I'll put it like this: it's like you got the prophet, then you got the priests, right? And I say, like, the business guy, the ones with the money are the priests, and the prophets are the engineers and the innovators, right?
It's just like in the world of physics. A lot of people say, "Oh, physics gave you all this," and it's like, no, engineers did. The physics just physicists came along and said, "Oh, we know what caused that. It's our little theory." Right. And the engineers are like, "Yeah, whatever. I got to keep working on something."
Exactly. I got something to do. Yeah. Exactly. And that's, it's I mean, hey, man, I'm not. My thing is like, I try to recognize things for what they are, and if I can do something about it, then I will. And if I don't know what to do, then at least I've made myself aware of it. At least I've made a conscious effort to learn it, or just be conscious of it. You know what I mean? It's like with the whole Girard thing. It took me a long time to come to him, because I wasn't. I was really interested in anthropology. You know what I mean? Especially into like rites and structures and traditions and prohibitions, taboos, all of that. But I wasn't finding that in people like Levi Strauss or Franz Boas or Milanowski and all of that. I don't. I guess I don't. I don't know why. I think it just has something to do with the fact that they were trying to have some kind of overarching idea too. Like Girard or something like that. But it's just with Girard, I it was a little different because he had that he had that kind of like, it was like Christianity is the pivotal turn. You know what I'm saying? It's like Christianity is the break in time, the break in cyclical time and history,
But he's famous for saying, if we didn't we didn't stop burning witches because we discovered the scientific method. We discovered the scientific method because we stopped burning witches. Right. And that's one of his famous catchphrases. That
right.
But the thing about that is, right, if you really think about it, that's a slow process that happens over and over again. And it's not, it's kind of hard to like track that in the fossil record of our culture, and look at like, okay, you're discovering science, but you just did a witch hunt still. How's that?
Right.
So it's this weird crossover that's still happening to this day. So as someone who, like, I want to figure out how to hack that deconstruction process and direct it into innovation faster to kind of like accelerate the profits coming into the mainstream. And the good prophet, not a false prophet, because that's a quack.
Right.
And that's what they do to marginalize anybody who's on the side of the prophets, is they say, you're on the side of the quacks, you're on the side of the pseudoscientists, you're on the side of the witch doctor, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But like, there are real diamonds there, and they need to be brought out.
Right.
And I want to know, like, how to socially engineer that process in a much more faster way, so that we're not just sitting there saying, well, Chris Palmer figured out diet. Who knows? It could be the pineapple diet. And it's like, no, it's not. No, that is a stupid postmodern defeatist mindset. And I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of this, like, because they say one guy finds a ketosis diet. He's a Harvard psychiatrist. But who knows? Maybe it's the grapefruit diet. Maybe it's the low fat. No, it's not. There's a way to systematically analyze the chemical processes that he's demonstrating, at least on a, empirical level, with dietary change. Let's go study that. And the way the government has set it up is you can't make any research funding for things that can't be patented. So, see, in my mind, it's very simple. I'm like a detective. I'm looking for the scapegoat mechanism as it still exists. Like I'm examining like a scapegoat mechanism, like a detective.
Yeah.
And I spotted it. It's called the FDA as it pertains to things like what Chris Palmer's doing in Harvard. And he can't say that. He's working in Harvard. He has to play the game.
Right.
But I'll say I don't care because I'm here to help prophets have a voice in the mainstream. That's the way I see it. I'm not a prophet. The folks who are being prophetic witnesses to the truth, you mean to tell me I don't have to do, psychotropic drugs the rest of my life? I can change my diet and eat a steak and have some broccoli and I'll be okay? The hell? The hell, man. How many folks are being poisoned every day that don't need to be?
Yeah.
I guess my point is like we got to figure out how to like engineer that process. Of moving prophets to the mainstream.
I don't know, man, because it's like kind of like, is that how they're set up to be, though? You know what I mean? Is that just kind of like in the workings of what a prophet does?
I reject
that to not be listened to.
No, but I reject that because Girard's thesis disproves that. If his thesis is correct, that disproves the idea that a prophet stays a prophet only.
How so?
Because we stopped burning witches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, we stopped burning witches, right? It's like the pivotal point is, of course, Christianity, right? Comes into play, right? But of course, if you take the kind of like Christian model of persecution, you shall be persecuted, and for my name's sake or something like that, then it has it really ended, right? If you you know what I'm saying? If you're like my whole thing, I like when people say, well, okay, but these guys are not claiming to be Christians. Yeah, but they're like people that may do science or whatever on and it's considered fringe or on the outskirts or whatever, right?
Aesthetically, they are Christians.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
You see what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Aesthetically, they are Christians,
right?
But Jesus says you will be persecuted. You see what I'm saying? So
so Tesla is fulfilling that. Nikola Tesla is fulfilling that prophetic witness of the world. Because he's marginalized and they mythologize him and maybe they overrated some of his things too. I don't want to go that way either.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like they marginalized him as this kook talking to pigeons.
By the way, they're coming out with some kind of movie about him or something like that, which is I think a little
pokey or something.
Pokey, but that's the thing because it's so hard to know really about his entire life. Of course they probably made a lot of stuff up. But I think the main takeaway from the prophet model is go your own way. Find your own path, right? And don't
to move out to the country.
Be like Abraham, you know what I'm saying, and leave your father's house. You know what I'm saying?
Was it time for you to leave Seattle? That's the question of today.
That's the question, man.
Just percolate. Let that percolate. We're gonna find. You're gonna get manifest destiny. Go out west. We can't go much west than where you're at.
Yeah, that
you can build. Hey, you can build a floating island like they're trying to do, right? There you go.
Nah, man, I'm trying to be like Elon and get on that trip, man.
Oh, to Mars, huh? I'm not going there, man. I don't want to go there. That's not my.
We need some Dune like empires going on.
The only people that are going to be able to afford the first trips to Mars are going to be the billionaires, and you know how sociopathic a lot of them could be. I don't want to be stuck in some capsule city with a bunch of sociopath billionaires hanging out talking about what they used to do on Burning Man while they're here stuck in this capsule town with me and Mars, and it's cold as hell. Hell no. I'll stay in America, man. I mean, think about it. If you don't want to live in Antarctica, you don't want to live in Mars. Let's just be serious.
I don't, I don't know. My whole thing is like,
Oh, you want to do the terraforming thing where you get it warm, see the atmosphere to Mars and all that. Man? Go ahead.
I just want to see the possibilities. You know what I mean? Like, what are the possibilities? You know what I mean? Is it possible to do these things? And if it is possible, here's my thing, bro. Here's my thing. I think Christians are duping themselves by not getting on board with thinking about new ideas within science and tech, right? That's, to me, that is like Christian heritage. That's true Christian heritage. And we shouldn't be afraid of those kind of things. Secondly, our religion, our faith, is the only faith that can give moral character to the science and tech. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. If we don't do that, if we're not a part of it, people who are not of our faith will do things that are immoral with it. But that's what's going to happen.
But popular scientism as an ideology says that Christianity is the greatest threat to science because, one, they teach evolution, so they don't teach biology. Two, they teach creation. So they don't know biology, so they don't know how to do proper medical science if they don't know biology. Number two, they believe in dominion, taking dominion of the earth, which means we can't trust them for climate change science and pollution problems. That Christians are the ones that are going to say pollute the earth and consume it. You know. And then number three is what's the other one? Oh, the stem cell thing. Remember that thing where you can't use infant fetus stem cells and stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of like the three things I thought of right now that are basically like the excuses for why Christians have no business touching anything in science.
Right. I mean, but to me, that those are things that I think Christians need to engage in and work through. Right? We need to not be held captive by the rhetoric that's going on amongst the secular, amongst secular people, right? Because I think for them, it's all about. I think people who do science who are not Christians and stuff, their whole thing is we want to be one with nature, right? They want to go back to that cyclical time, man. You know what I'm saying? They want to do the cyclical thing, and my thing is it
is the return of the sacred when they want to sacrifice.
That does not exist anymore.
But that's what they're trying to do with that Green New Deal and stuff. They're trying to return the sacred so they can sacrifice enough people. Now, they won't say they're going to kill them, but they do say we're going to, soak the rich and destroy technology and bring it down with violence. And then if we do that, we'll save the planet and the planet will bless us. That's completely classical sacred. Yeah, it's just dressed up in language.
That's why I mean that Christians need to get on board.
But here's the thing. But how do you square getting on board with go your own way? See what I mean? You said you got to go your own way if you're a prophet in science. How are you going to go your own way, but then still engage the mainstream scientific era?
Well, because it's about
Skype from a country town.
You can do it. You can do it from Skype. You can do it. Community have a conference every 2 years, like a family reunion. Get everybody together and y'all throw one of the most the biggest pageantry. Do something like have the entrance of the coronation of the queen. You know what I'm saying? Get that going. Do something where people can get together and have a meeting of the minds.
So we need Christian Science reading rooms.
we need we need we need Christian Science Convention. You know what I'm saying? You know, you had that
They already
science
got that
convention.
brand. I don't even know what Christian scientists believe, but they already got that
No.
brand down pat.
Yeah, exactly. So
Christian
you
Science
can't
Reading Room.
we can't even actually use that because they done already
trademarked it.
Whatever they're doing in there. I don't even know what I don't even know.
No idea. I can't speak about it. All I know is that Jim Henson was a Christian Scientist. That's all I know.
Man, hey, look. Is that the denomination that believes that like don't take medication for when you're sick?
So I can't speak on
it. Anyways, you know, look, my thing
I get them mixed up with Scientology. I know they're different, but I don't know which one believes what.
Yeah. You know, anyways, my whole thing is
oh, I do know that I had a guest on who said that the CIA infiltrated the Christian Science denomination, the assets. So that's weird. I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, sorry. That's the only thing I remember.
My thing is, you know, if I think it has to go. Christians have to go in a different direction, right? We can't keep using, you know, politics to kind of, you know, to vote in the people that we want to be voted in, and you know, all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that that's hard to get away from, especially for older generations, because that's what they know to be, you know, the way to change things, right? But I think and this is where, you know, see, this is where I think the church, and in particular ministers and priests and stuff like that, they need to be putting forth an effort to preach about, you know, the efficacy and whatever of science and tech, right? And how Christians can utilize that. I don't understand why they have not been as passionate or as, you know.
Well, it's the left brain mentality I was talking about. Compartmentalized. Okay. I'm a theologian. I'm a pastor. I do this, and one of my parishioners happens to be a scientist, and I like listening to him, what he's got to say, but I'm not going to that's not my domain. That's there. I'm here. But anthropology would give you an understanding that absolutely they're very deeply connected.
They're deeply connected, and not only that, it's that Christians, you know, monks and stuff. I mean, they were the, you know, they were the ones that were, you know, putting forth knowledge, you know, doing all the writing and scribal work and stuff like that. They were science, you know, they were involved in science and medicine. And I say that to say that I know a lot of people consider, well, you know, the medieval Western world weren't involved in science because they were in the Dark Ages. Yeah, okay, whatever. But there was also the Eastern Christianity, the Nestorians, right, who lived in Iran, who lived in Persia, who were highly involved in medicine, highly involved in you know, astronomy and, you know, things of that nature. So we shouldn't assume, you know, chemistry, you know, we shouldn't assume that, you know, it was the Islamic golden age that brought these things about. That's not necessarily true, right? It was that fermentation process that had already taken place with the Christians living in the East, right? And so, you know, my thing is that Christians need to, religious churches need to be promoting, you know, the science and tech. And I'm not talking about like, you know, 5G or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about real tangible, you know, things. You know what I mean? Scientific.
Like what? What are some things you like?
Like, you know,
you said going to Mars. We've got
going to Mars.
Well, give me some other ones closer to home.
Life extension.
Okay. What else? Give me something else. What else do you like? Practical stuff. Give some more practical.
Okay. Let me think.
I like 3D printed homes. I think that's kind of cool. That sounds interesting, right? Being able to print
another one would be if you live in a town and the snow on the ground cannot melt without some kind of underneath whatever, like just getting rid of that. Like we should have that already. Like
get rid of snow.
Get rid of.
That's called a shovel. We got that a long time ago, man.
Snow should not be a barrier to me getting to where I need to get to. You know what I'm saying? Like melt that with some kind of.
We already took care of that. That's called climate change. Apparently, that's going to warm that up real quick.
Yeah, whatever, right? It's still. All I know is when February comes here, we be praying. Everybody's in church, praying that it don't snow. You see what I'm saying? Because, like I said, Washingtonians are not used to that. So, people living in Puget Sound are not used to that. So when it snows, that creates a whole problem for us because we thought we was about to go to the club on Saturday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Snow. So anyway,
now you're gonna be sliding into the club.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? Somebody might chip a tooth, right? But look, man. I think one that is getting addressed, is infrastructure, right? Like the highways and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Not being able to get to places. Traffic being a problem and stuff like that. I think that is something that I've seen it a couple of times, like in the news. Trump addressing that kind of stuff. And
but that's the problem, is that all the world of physical innovation is dominated by the state, and the state is the monopoly of violence, according to George Washington and Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Both of them say that it's a monopoly on the use of violence. Monopoly on the initiation of violence is another way of saying the pagan sacred.
Yeah.
A fact. And nobody wants to say that. They don't, because, a lot of Girardian types, they don't want to get that clean and detailed in the analysis because why? They want to keep it loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
They want to keep it, the sacred is? It's a market. No, it's not. Okay? Mm-hmm. I totally reject that a market is the vestige of the sacred. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. That denies the idea that God made us in his image. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because think about a reciprocal market. If you say, look, I make basketballs. I know how to make them in my house. And you make great goat cheese. If we share that exchange, I like that goat cheese more than my extra basketball. Here you go. You want one? You get one? Right. Whatever it is. But then you say, wait a second. Hey, you know what? I can't use another basketball or whatever. So how about we have something we both like? All right. I like that silver coin. I like that gold nugget. Let's use that as a medium of exchange. So I got one little gold nugget. You got to go. We'll measure how to, make this a win-win for everybody. There's nothing sacred about it. I don't understand how that's a mark of, because I know these Girardian scholars try to make that, the market is the form of the sacred. No, it's not. It's called the state, but you don't want to look at it. You don't want to look at the state. See, that's the thing. Nobody wants to look at the sacred. Nobody wants to acknowledge what it is, and we're not scandalizing the state, but the state is retarding our ability to progress. And so what I'm trying to do is get people to see, like, I want you to see that behind the veneer of policy and bureaucracy is the retardation of scientific progress. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because, as long as you have a monopoly funding mechanism that funds college and grant making and peer review papers and all this stuff, it's always going to be easily directed into maintaining the status quo of yesterday's priestly caste.
Right. The regulation. Yeah.
So my question is, I want to go back to something because I want people to, maybe you can give a good explanation for this. Maybe like, how is that true? What Girard said, that we discovered the scientific method because we stopped burning witches. Like, what does that look like? Can we try to flesh that out for folks a little bit here? Like, so what does that look like? What does that look like that Christianity comes in? Because it's when people hear that and they're new to this, it's very bizarre. What are you talking about? Jesus comes along, Some people believe he's God, and now you're saying that's the reason why people are stopping burning witches. Wait a second. Everybody who burned witches were the people who were Christians. What are you talking about? That's what people hear. And so can you unpack that for folks, what that actually looks like in that moment? Maybe you can kind of make a scene that maybe represents the bigger picture of what's happening. What does that look like?
I mean, it's hard for me to say. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna try to come up with something if it's not true. You know what I mean?
What does that mean to you then? Okay, let's put it that way. What does that mean to you?
For me, it kind of it's more of like a slow revelation within the community. You know what I mean? That you turn away from it gradually. You know what I mean? It might be like a generation to generation or something like that. You know, I don't,
so what's making them turn away from it? They just don't like it as much.
I think it loses its luster, right? It loses its luster, right? It could also be the fact that a different culture has come in and kind of infiltrated in that society, right?
Like Christian missionaries coming into the Nordic cults and so forth.
Exactly. You know, but see, before that even happened, before that even took place, Christianity was probably permeating that society anyways, because all the people that they were interacting with had become Christian by that time. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Nordic peoples couldn't continue to do the things they were doing because everybody else was Christian already. Right? The Angles, the
they're
Franks,
interacting with them and seeing them.
They're interacting with them, right?
And what makes them want to move towards Christianity is because these other groups have better military success than them, and they're like, what are you doing different? And then they're like, what is this God that you're representing? You know, is that what it is?
These other groups have stability. These other groups have the ability to work together, right? It may not be for our standards, of course, it would be like, this is ridiculous, but to them, it would be like, it's way more efficient than what we've been doing, raiding and capturing people. Just, going off on them, you know what I mean, or whatever. And of course, that's not to say that the people that we consider to be medieval Christians, they were doing that too before they became Christians. The Franks are Germanic peoples. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
So they, Clovis was a pagan.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The Celts, the Anglo-Saxons, the Goths, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Lombards, whatever you want to say, they were all pagans at some point. They all worshiped, the Nordic or Celtic gods. The Slavs, the Slavic peoples were pagans before they adopted Christianity, right? But what happens is, I think the society that's still locked up in the pagan world doesn't. It's kind of like, when you talk about it's hard for you to kick against the pricks. Like you don't really have a choice now, because your society is either gonna like
get conquered,
right? Either by the fact that like the culture is so strong when it comes to Christianity, right? It's there. It's permeated the European society. You can't really do anything except either continue to battle with these people, and then they learn how to really defend themselves against you,
mm-hmm.
and see you as an enemy to be destroyed, because first you're pagan, and two, you keep coming in and invading. You know what I mean? It's so again, I think it loses its efficacy. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have the same kind of luster that it used to have.
So right? you need to expand on, how does the Christian religion or story make those other communities stronger in comparison to this
Okay.
this
Yeah.
pagan culture? You need to
I
explain that
mean,
for folks.
for instance, you know, with the introduction of Christianity into European societies, it made for more, you know, a much more monastic lifestyle, right? So, you know, you had monks and scribes, right? You had the creation of, um, educational institutions, right? Um, you know, those are the things that help to create that kind of, I think, sedentary life, around cities and around towns. So,
Mhm.
the creation of the University of Bologna, the University of Paris, right?
What about
You know,
farming and agrarian?
if farming and yeah, and agrarian society, right? You have less kind of invasion of, from one tribe to another and things like that, right? Because, they, they're governed by, kingdoms and things like that, and it's not like these small tribes and whatever raiding each other and stuff like that, right? Once,
So is it because the Christian mentality has a more universalistic ethic that it's able to make common cause with other tribes quicker than more, parochial, local, right?
yeah, I mean, I think it has something to do with Christianity allow for people to think about their life, right? Think about their circumstances. Um, and it wasn't always about a need to survive, right? It was, they were able to make like calculated decisions about their communities and things like that. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
create a banking system or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I don't think that would have been come into existence had it not been for Christianity.
So, all right, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
well, people might say, well, look at how advanced and wealthy Japan is versus the Philippines, and look at how many percentage of the Philippines is Christian versus Japan, which is pagan or not Christian,
Yep.
atheistic. So,
Yeah.
so doesn't that disprove your kind of thesis you're building here?
No, there's not,
Why?
because Japan has adopted the Western culture. It's just you don't know that because everybody thinks that, well, their culture is Shinto and Buddhist, but it's like not on the not in its, that's the surface. You
So
understand what I'm
how?
saying?
So, but see, but this is interesting. So how is no? It's good though. This is good for people to think about this.
Yeah.
So how is it that Japan is more Christian in its culture than say Philippines, even though the numbers of folks who say they're Christians in the Philippines, and I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm painting with a broad
Yeah, yeah,
brush. I know
yeah. No, I get it.
this
Yeah,
is hard to explain,
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
because we're
hard for
not,
me to explain to. Yeah,
but we can obviously see that Japan is a wealthier country than the Philippines and more
yeah,
technologically on the cutting edge. Maybe that'll change. Maybe that is changing. I don't know. My
yeah.
point is for people who want to be skeptics of this thesis that we're trying
Hmm.
to lesson,
Hmm.
to, to illustrate. I'm trying to
Yeah,
help them
yeah,
steel
yeah.
man this.
Well, so my thing is that like when it um you know I mean I don't really know the history of Japan, but I do know that Japan, um in the 20th century, it adopted a lot of the, you know technology from the West, right? The
So it kind of
building
took a
of,
shortcut to get a lot of the
yeah, you know
Christian
yep,
inherited technological advancement.
right, you know what I mean. There's a um professor named Emiko, um what's her name, Emiko Onuki Tierney, right? Who talks about, um, the Japanese emperor and how he was kind of deified, or seen as, uh, a god, right, or whatever, and that, um, the younger generation at that time they were all educated. They had all been a part of academia, right? And they had learned foreign languages fluently, right? Latin, German, Hebrew. Whatever, French. Those languages. And so they were proficient in learning things of the West, philosophy, right? And philosophical ideas and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So that shows you the kind of that the Western ideas have permeated Japanese, culture, right since before World War II, mm-hmm. right? Japanese were intrigued by Western culture, right? They were intrigued by guns and the clock, right, and things like that, right? They internalized those things, right? They kind of made it their own, so to speak. But nonetheless, they would not have had those concepts and the ideas that they have. Even the concept of the emperor as a god was, the concept of the emperor as a war king, as the head of the military, the head of the warriors, was not a concept in Japan. Mm-hmm. That concept came from the West, right? In Japan, originally, the emperor was seen as a deity,
right,
and as a priest.
And that's a vestige of the original role
of the original role
of a scapegoat king, of a scapegoat god. Right. Yeah, you can see that's how you can see the fossil record preserved in those little.
Right. That was his. That was his original role. He was never supposed to play the role of a war king. He was never supposed to play the role of a warrior. That was she says that was the shogun's role. Right, so it's a caste system, right? The priests are at the top, and the emperor, who is the head of the priests, is the Yamato dynasty, mm-hmm. Family, right? And they played the role of the priests, and they officiated the rites of the rice ceremony. That was the most important role for the emperor, was to maintain a good harvest, maintain a good rice harvest, right? It was only when the West introduced this idea of the emperor as the head of the state, in which he governs over the military, that he became this kind of, deified figure who was kind of like the head warrior, and everybody who fights, should die for the emperor, or whatever. But before that, most Japanese people had never even seen a picture of the emperor. Mm. See what I'm saying? He was a figure that was not seen, in the sense that, he was a god. He was a deity, right?
Which was a vestige of his role as sacrifice, probably.
Right. But, nevertheless, that just goes to show you that Japan adopted a lot of ideas from the West. You know what I mean? Whether they were bad or good. You know what I mean? With the Philippines, because that is kind of like a weird, sort of a strange thing, because it's like, well, okay, you got this Christian nation, right? A majority Christian nation, and they're not, they have been able to they have a lot of problems, economically, mm-hmm. or whatever,
I think it's because of Catholicism versus Protestants.
Yeah. I mean,
and I'm not saying.
I'm just gonna say it, bro. Yes.
But we're not. But look, I want to make it clear for my listeners: this is not at all. We're not attacking one or the other. I mean,
no.
Shannon's the most Catholic guy I know. You're Roman Catholic. So, but here's why I think. Yeah. Right. Here's this thing.
Yeah.
I'm a quote from the Japan Times. In October 1945, General MacArthur urged Protestant leaders in the United States to send 1,000 missionaries to try to convert Japan to Christianity. And then what we see later on, let's see, where did I put this? There it is. So he says, send missionaries, and he said, and Bibles, okay? So this is in belief.net. In 1955, MacArthur told U.S. News and World Report, no phase of the occupation has left me with a greater sense of personal satisfaction than my spiritual stewardship. Over the next 5 years, some 5,000 missionaries from all different kinds of churches went to Japan. The land was flooded with millions of Bibles. That's the key. Yeah. It's the Bible being able to have that influence to me, that kind of zealous, we got to make this sink home for your culture, that right. maybe they rejected the metaphysics and the fullness of Christianity as they did, but they still were able to absorb a kind of quick, dare I say, heroin dose injection. It's not an ethical way to do Christianity in some sense, but it is what it is. And it kind of sped up their ability to kind of catch on and imitate and start structuring society in a way that could allow them to prosper relative to other countries in the region. Do you see that?
Right. And I think with Catholicism in, say, the Philippines, it was more a holdover from colonialism.
Right. So it's more the older model. It's like an older version of Christianity that wasn't quite as deconstructed of mythology, I think.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It wasn't deconstructive mythology. That was about prestige, right? If my family or we become Catholics, we may get a little more than, the family that's
MacArthur
over there,
had spiritual stewardship in mind. He was trying to construct a kind of culture that would hold the society in lieu of the emperor, right?
Right. And I mean, I don't, it's I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of backlash for this talking, about Asian cultures and stuff like that, but it, I don't see how Japan could have caught up with the West had they not imitated its some of its behavior. That doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Because Japan is one of the most, like, there's a culture of, like, I don't know what the word is, maybe insulation. Like, they don't, they had periods in which they shut everybody else out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They continue to hold on to their ancient religion. They have certain things about their culture that is just very, very, that they hold on to, and they have also kind of, I think, because they have done so well in absorbing Western modes of thinking and stuff like that, they've been able to to hand that back over to us. Now you got kids watching anime and Dragon Ball Z. You know what I'm saying? You got the kids, everybody wants to eat sushi and be part of judo.
Because that's part of the Western mindset, is to self-flagellate your own culture and say, well, mine's not good enough.
Right.
Super Friends is not good enough. I need Dragon Ball Z. It's cooler. It's more interesting. It's more edgy. It's more exotic. And the exotic is considered to be the place of progress in the West, right?
Yeah.
So you go outside of the West. The West is doom and gloom and disaster. We hate the West. The West is the worst thing ever existed.
Exactly.
That's all Christianity. It's not the way Christianity. Here's a question. It's not the way Christianity is designed to be, but it's the effect of Christianity, right? Does Jesus want us to self-flagellate our own culture the way politically correct Western society does? I don't think so. But he does want us to have a humility that looks kind of close to that, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to say.
I think that actually stems from the rejection in our society in the 1960s of the Christian of Christian values. You know, after the war, you know,
the
and
self-flagellation is a rejection of is a result of the rejection of Christian values.
Yeah, it's the result of certain generations that, you know, they saw their parents and grandparents who were, you know, say devout Christians and stuff like that, you know, had families, they were married, they stuck together, yada yada yada, right? Who they didn't want that. They, you know, they wanted to go to the East. Let's study Hinduism. Let's study Buddhism. You know, let's tune out.
That's where they got that craze for all the gurus from the 60s.
For the gurus,
yeah.
And you see they ran them up. I know you seen a couple of them Netflix gurus, you know, the yoga cats and the, you know, everything else, right? So this is what I mean. It's like, I think
they started off with gurus, and they ended up like John Kerry bombing the hell out of every country in the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's the legacy of that generation. We're going to go off in the summer of love and learn how to escape ourselves. And then when we're ready to be in our 60s, we're going to go and bomb every country on behalf of military industrial corporations that make $400 profit off of a toothbrush.
Right.
How did that happen? How does that? I've always wondered about that. How does that happen? I think it shows that Christianity is correct, that you have to have an actual freaking role model. You can't just deny the self. That's not going to last. At some point, John Kerry's going to wake up from that drug-induced haze and say, hey, what am I going to do with my life? And somebody at Lockheed Martin says, hey, son, you want to run for office? Got some opportunities for you. Says, sign me up, you know? And there goes 2020 telling everybody we need to vote for his guy because we need to keep bombing the hell out of the countries that are profitable for us.
I don't know, bro. Now you got me.
Now I'm going.
You got me over here.
Remember in 2004, they tried to make that guy the anti-war candidate, and he's over here pushing for us to go into Syria and expand this and that.
Yeah,
this is an example of the failure of the boomer generation.
And then they turned him into the UN secretary. You know, the one secretary that actually knows how to speak French. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, for whatever reason, you know, and
then he's caught on tape saying that stuff about, you know, well, yeah, we knew we were going to unleash Al Qaeda or whatever, or ISIS, but we thought that was going to take out Assad, and we didn't know it was going to go out of control. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's the guy that we had in 2004 saying, hey, you know, he's anti-war. He's against the Iraq war. But it's just so fake, man.
Yeah.
It's all fake. It's all a theater. It's all a sacred theater. It's the kabuki theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the kabuki theater, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, look, you know, maybe that's why you need to listen to Gregorian chant instead of kabuki.
What do you learn?
I don't know. Maybe that's still a little pagan too, because you know you talked about that. You know, the Catholics, you know, still got that little bit of. It's funny because you know what? They have these. In the Catholic Church they used to do this thing with it, like the Agnus Dei, where they would take the wax from the previous year's paschal candle, you know, that's put up. They would melt that down, and then print a wax, like on the seal would be like a sheep, you know, the lamb of God or whatever, and they would pass that out to people, right? And so I read this thing that said, well, that's the vestiges of like a pagan carryover of like charms and stuff, right? And so in other words, the church was trying to kind of ease people away from their pagan practices by doing things like that, right? And I do think that older churches, whether it be Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, or Oriental Orthodox, have that as a part of their tradition.
That's why I don't scandalize it, but I don't scandalize it, but I also kind of see through it more if you look at it that way, because to me it's like this veneration of the saints and stuff. is like a replacement of the veneration of these gods everywhere.
Yeah,
a goddess. Look, Gerard says,
yeah.
We don't invent our gods, we deify our victims, right?
Right.
So you go from deifying victims to deifying martyrs, but not deifying in the total sense, but kind of a sacralization of it.
Yeah. And
I see that as a fossil transition. You see what I mean?
I do too.
So I don't scandalize it. I just recognize it for what it is.
Exactly.
That's why I'm not as attracted to like joining that whole thing. And I don't care.
Right.
I've got a lot of listeners that like that stuff, but I'm just not attracted to it because I see the anthropological function for why that was being done.
Exactly.
I don't hate it, but I'm not into it either because
Right. And that's the thing. It's like for me, I'm not so much, and I don't, my thing is like when people say, well, if you say that kind of stuff, you might get, anathemized or something like that. And it's like, look, man.
What are they talking about? Odin?
No, they're talking about, like being a Catholic, if you say certain things, like if you don't believe in the saints, stuff like that, then basically you're not a Catholic or something like that. Here's my thing. I think people can be Catholics and not agree with everything that the church believes. Mm-hmm. And that's just facts. If you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, what are you going to do? Nothing. You can't, nobody's going to tell me I'm not a Catholic because I don't believe in like papal supremacy, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so what? Who cares? You know what I mean? Like it's my opinion.
Jesus is clear about that. Jesus says about the Good Samaritan. He says, "How do you enter? How do you have eternal life?" And Jesus answers it by telling the Good Samaritan parable, right?
Right.
And the Samaritan of his time was an absolute heretic because he doesn't believe that God is actually in the temple,
right?
Like Jesus's people believe.
Right.
That's pretty worse than saying the papal supremacy is not true, right?
I mean, hey.
And yet he says, go and be like the Good Samaritan.
Yep.
So I don't do the whole, I look at Jesus first. I mean, you can call that Protestant because you're conditioned to say that, but it doesn't mean anything to me.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Not you, but I'm just saying in general. But
no, but it doesn't though. You're right. It doesn't mean anything because the thing is that even Catholics say, look at the scripture. Mm-hmm. What does the Bible say? What does Jesus say in the Word?
And when he's asked how to inherit eternal life, he says, go and be like the guy that doesn't even acknowledge that my Father is in the temple where I believe he is. What? Right. That's all you need to know. I mean, but why does this have to be so complicated? Go your own way, right? Why does this have to be so complicated for folks?
Because people they like groups and they want to be the one to say they're a part of the group that they think is right. Yeah. Right.
They're self-justifying themselves and they're hiding it in a veneer of piety or something.
Yeah. The reason why, for me, the church is, like this French professor, Jean-Luc Marion said, the church is like a washing machine. It washes the sinners, whatever. It's not full of just pure people and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? It's the washing machine that's working to get all the dirt out, right? Mm-hmm. When you understand that, you understand like the church is not this pure place.
And in some sense, the church is a process. Then
it's a process. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's what I see within the Catholic Church. I don't, you're not about to hang me up on well, if you don't believe in the, in the holiness of the the Pope and papal supremacy and Peter's rock and all of that, man, listen, man, you can miss me with all that, bro. I don't care none of that. Yeah. My thing is, we got to understand what it is, and I'm okay with talking and saying things that I think need to be said in order for Christians to get this. Here's another thing, because I said this.
Oh, you're gonna get prophetic now. Uh-oh.
No, here's another thing I said. Why is it? I was telling my friend, man. I said, why is it that Black people, we used to be one of the most religious people in this country. We went to church like every Sunday, right? Why is it that has stopped? Right? And my thing was, I said, I think that it stopped because younger generations see the hypocrisy. They're done with that. If our parents and our grandparents talked about going to church all the time, but you didn't see not one of them had a successful life outside of church. They didn't own no home. They didn't have no money in the account, no savings, nothing. You see what I'm saying? The kids see where the success is, and they saw it in people who were in the streets, right? People that were getting fast money. Mm-hmm. So why would I listen to a deacon that used to be, on drugs and found and got his life together now? Now he wants to tell me, you need to find Jesus and get right. It's, see what I'm saying? The kids don't want to hear that because it's like, okay, but you failed and then came back into the church.
This is a plan B or C or D for you. Right?
You're right.
You tried car sales first.
Right. It didn't work out. And now you want to come back here and tell me that I need to get right. What they're saying is right. What they're saying is true. Right? Because they lived the experience. But see, there's a difference when you try to transfer that onto a child. Because they can't see that in you. They can't see that influence. If you were a doctor and you were a deacon, it probably would have made a little bit more sense. It's like, okay, he's actually successful and he believes in God. He's actually got something and he believes in God. Right? He's coming to church.
But what about people that say you sound like a little bit like prosperity gospel here now, right? You got to measure people's success by their worldly income.
No,
not that.
Okay. It's about you are a working person who has a successful life, but you're also a moral person, and it's about community. You know what I'm saying? Like in the past, you did have the doctor that was the deacon, and he was a part of the community. You did have the usher that was a nurse. You see what I'm saying? And they were all, and every Sunday, it was Sunday dinner, the love feast after church. What happened to the love feast, man? We don't got the love feast no more. You know what I'm saying? The agape feast or something. The only church that I think still does that is the Ethiopian church. You know what I'm saying?
We go to Red Lobster or something. Right? We used to go to Red Lobster. That was in 2000s and 90s. We don't.
Yeah, you don't get them butter biscuits no more. You know what I'm saying? But that's my point. It's we have lost the efficacy of the community sense of Christianity, as much as we've lost kind of the transcendence, in the sense of being able to do what people think is impossible. Right? We don't have either one anymore. Now it's just, heck, man, Easter used to be cool. Like Easter Sunday was a cool time, and now it's just like, get the peeps out. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy some, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have families getting together anymore, roasting, something and putting together a dinner and stuff like that. That's everybody is like, to themselves. You know what I'm saying? And I think that has caused a lot of problems for Christians. We don't want to do the communal thing anymore. You know what I mean? We don't want to do the togetherness, and we also don't want to do the individualism thing anymore.
But but I think in some ways it's good that a lot of people have forsaken the church, because there's a saying, I don't know how they say it now exactly, but something like, there's a way of rejecting the false god of so many erroneous interpretations of Scripture that is the most Christian thing you can do. And a lot of folks, they forsake the fellowship because they see the hypocrisy, and I don't think you should forsake the fellowship necessarily, but they see the hypocrisy, but also they're being told that God hates, God wants to, punish, violently attack his son, and aren't you happy that he didn't hit you? It's like,
right,
that's the gospel.
Right,
I don't see that. That's not what I see. I see Jesus saying, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing."
Right.
And the average way that the church is teaching Jesus is they said, "Accept that guy in India, accept that guy in Thailand, accept that guy that didn't know me in pagan Germany at the time that Jesus was dying on the cross." No, Jesus, was not there in the interpretation as we see the pagans do.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was self-sacrificing, not sacrificing another.
Right.
And that changes everything. That changes everything, man.
Yeah, it does.
Nobody teaches that in the church.
Well, that's
the left-wing Christians do, but they go off into crazy land.
Well, yeah, but
you know what I mean?
That's and it's like you want to, you're trying to figure out, is it because they don't? If I'm not trying to hinge everything on Gerard, I don't think everything should be hinged on Gerard, right? I think that's Christians shouldn't do that, right?
It's sloppy thinking anyway.
Yeah, it's sloppy thinking, right? But I think there are a lot of Christians who pass over his thinking, so as to, the Catholic Church did that, and he was a devout Catholic, and he went to the Tridentine Mass, the Latin Mass,
because we haven't. I think he kind of oversold the decline of the sacred. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he was trying to be the
like he said, the scapegoat mechanism has been destroyed, but I think it has been destroyed, but it's not quite. It's like saying, like, my car went kaputs, but it actually is still going for a little while down the road before it fully stops working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Still, we're still rolling on this machine. It doesn't work, and it doesn't unify.
It doesn't work. Yeah,
but it's a lot. I think it's a lot more powerful than people realize. And I think, like, the Pope doesn't want to bring in Gerard, because then he'd have to give up his alliance with states like Communist China.
Right. And
I mean, that,
yeah. And I mean, I think not only that, it's I think with Gerard, it was also, of course, he was before the baby boomers. You see what I'm saying?
Silent generation, right?
He was so they came from that generation.
They lived up to their name, didn't they? Silent.
Just do what you're told. You understand what I'm saying? Do what you're told. Do what you're supposed to do. And that's not to say that he wasn't, like, a rebel or something like that. You know what I mean? He used to be an atheist. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's where his comfort zone. And some people, that's what that's what they know. So it's came from France. It's not like to join the Protestant Holy Rollers. You know what I'm saying? The Holy Ghost field. You know what I'm saying? He was about to join, like, a black church. You know what I'm saying? Where they have you speaking in tongues and shouting all night. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying. It's my thing is that's the same thing as going to church, and praying before one of the saints. Shouting all day, till you pass out. That has the same
ritual catharsis,
right? It might be rooted in, say, the African traditions, right?
Laughing in the spirit, right? That's the Kundalini spirit, right?
Yes, we don't recognize it as that because it doesn't. It's a lot of people say, well, it don't look Christian, right? But it's like, but it is. It's just it has the African form, you don't see that, I mean, they all have that. You know what I'm saying?
My thing is that if you get the anthropology of Jesus into the mix, it's going to correct your theology, but it's also more quickly going to correct your political if you understand it. And I think that a lot of so there's a problem within the Christian church in America, is that a lot of these conservative denominations say, oh man, we're all getting hijacked by social justice ideology, even in our own seminaries. We've lost it. We're getting invaded by these people trying to do liberation theology. And my thing is, like, of course, you are.
Yeah.
Because if you understood the anthropology of Jesus, then you'd understand the forces that are creating this liberation political push that's capturing the hearts of your youth, and you can't stop it, because trying to go back to more pagan interpretations of the biblical story are not going to stave off hyper-Christianity's attack against Christianity. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go to the real thing. You're going to have to find the true politics of Jesus and start teaching it. And that's the thing nobody wants to do, because every time I say there is a politics of Jesus, people get scared and they say, no, it's not possible. They'll say, well, yeah, you can derive certain principles and an abstract thing from Jesus, but nobody wants to actually like glue it down to actual repercussions. Nobody wants to do the hard work, except for the left, because the left is out there converting all of these formerly conservative churches, Catholics, Baptists, Southern Baptists even. They're going into these places and they're turning them into these social justice, progressive Democrat activists. You know what I mean? It's like, and to me, I see it as a simultaneously great thing and a bad thing. The great thing is that the old, more pagan, the more pagan theological edifices that have been holding the church back are falling apart, and people are getting hungry for justice, but then they get redirected into the false political prescription. You see what I mean? So I see it. It's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah. And this is where I think, like, this is what I mean about this is a good time for a lot of people as individuals to really search, and find out what they believe. This is a great time to do that. You need to be searching and reading up on, if you really believe Christianity to be true, that's your faith, then you need to be finding literature and things that back that up. And don't be out here just talking about I'm a Christian. You know what I'm saying? It's I'm not saying you got to go out there and be saving souls, right? But you for your self, what they call self-edification, you need to do the work to know why you believe what you believe in.
Well, I would go further and lower the bar even lower and say, for your own survival, you need to understand what Jesus is talking about.
Right.
Because I really believe that, like if Christians, if I could snap my fingers, and make people understand the implications of the political and anthropological implications of the life of Jesus. Yeah. If I could get, just 20% or 10% of the church in America to fully get this, this place would be rocking and rolling in a lot of exciting places. But because it's just so, to me, I see it, and I see such clarity here that the culture is screaming out for justice. And if you're going to be following Christ, that better be freaking essential 101 of what it looks like. Every time the prophets are dealing in the Old Testament, they're talking about specific problems of the king of their time. They're not talking about some abstract, eschatology. They're talking about real concrete stuff. They're saying this king has killed people. Woe to you who has founded your city on bloodshed. That sounds like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah,
and the reason why
them on blast.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter is that organization. These entities are manifesting because the church does not want to imitate Jesus. If you imitate Jesus, those things will fall away like this. I'm telling you, because people are dying for the beautiful truth of the cross. They're dying. They're literally dying. People are tearing each other apart. And they don't. But you have to have the Christian ethic that is so unique, that recognizes the human person. Because what these other ideologies do, politically correct social justice ideologies do, is they don't want to recognize the person. That's why they think they can scream in people's faces, burn down people's dealerships, and it's okay because
put up guillotines.
Yeah, you can't do that. You're denying the personhood revolution of Jesus, and it's like this. They believe that they can get more justice quicker by going the collectivist route rather than the personal route.
Yeah.
Right. Like personal right too slow. That's too messy.
Yep.
Because
it's
that's like
hard.
It's gonna, it's much easier to just demonize. Okay, this group is canceled. This race is canceled. This gender is canceled. This religion is canceled. No. That's not going to get you what you want. It's going to create undifferentiated violence and chaos, like we're seeing.
Right, and then you got to go right back and try to, and that's what I'm saying. It's like you're gonna. you know, whether you're on the left or the right, the point is that you have to do some kind of self reflection, self learning, you know, because you know, going to church or being a part of the secular community of the social justice warriors or whatever is not going to give you as an individual the answer you're looking for. It's gonna it's the crowd's answer. You see what I'm saying? It's the group's answer. Right. And there may be things that you don't agree with about within the group, within the church, within with the protesters. But you got to go along with it because now you done joined in. You know what I mean?
Because it's the only game in town, though.
Right.
You know? Mm-hmm. And the conservatives are they're getting a little bit of prophetic edge on some things. They're good on the free speech. They're good on a couple things, you know, war, and in the war, that's a prophetic biblical way to be, you know, but at the same time, you got to get the whole package. That's why I got to give a shout out to former Congressman Ron Paul. We got to give a shout out to him because this is a guy who walked the walk. He's the best example of a Christian in political sphere.
Yeah.
Because this guy, and I'm not talking about, you know, whatever his personal thing. I'm just talking about the way he speaks to the public. He said to screaming crowds, 10,000 strong at universities in California, Texas, Florida, everywhere in 2012. And he said, I don't want to run your life. I don't know how to. Right. I don't want to run the world. I don't know how to if I wanted to. That's biblical. That's the way a Christian talks to someone.
Right.
You don't talk like this bull crap that the left and the right both buy into in this stupid mythological hallucination. Oh, Kamala will save me. Yes.
Right.
Donald Trump will save the world. No, that's a heresy. In the name of Jesus Christ, we rebuke that demonic spirit. That's satanic. The Christian says, I don't want to run the world because I don't know how to because I am not King Jesus.
Yep.
That's what you say.
Yep.
And they just ignored that man, but that man is what a Christian looks like in the public sphere. You say, I can't tell you how to run your life because I don't have the talent to do that.
Yeah.
That's a humility that every Christian leader should be having. When we have a 70% country that says they're Christians, we should have 70% of our elected officials representing that spirit. Not one guy.
Yeah.
One guy. That's all we got.
Yeah.
That's politics in a nutshell right there.
Right there, bro.
But it's not a dead end because he did have an audience.
Yeah.
Millions of young people were excited about him all over the university campus.
Right. He's sowing seeds. You know, he sowed the seeds. You know, and I mean, that's the first step, bro. You know what I mean? It's I mean, heck, it's 2020. You know, 2020, and we're talking about him right now. So you know, it's I mean, it's of course it's you know, you have to create the germ. You know
when I went to a Ron Paul rally in Minneapolis in 2008, his first run for president, and we went in there. My friend and I flew up there, and he did a convention across the street from John McCain's nomination for the Republican Party, and he took the Target Center. He sold that place was packed, 12,000 people, and when you went in there and you saw that, you saw. In a cab ride, we had a Pentecostal fundamentalist elderly folks and an Asian Silicon Valley tech guru in the same cab ride, basically in the same thing.
Yeah,
and we were going to the same mission. And what was our mission? Set the captives free.
Yeah.
Stop the wars. Stop lying. Stop sending young men and women in valorous missions only to be hoodwinked that it was for scam.
Right.
For money, for perpetual whatever you got to do to be Machiavellian.
Right.
So we came united around peace, not hippie peace.
Yeah.
Because Ron never said that crap like the Libertarian Party does, which tries to normalize, I am the captain of my life. I do whatever I want. Ron said, if you're going to have your freedom, you better have your own self-reliance. If you want to do a drug, you do a drug, but don't you ask the government and us to bail you out because you're acting like a fool.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You're not the captain of your life. In other words, there's something bigger than you that you need to aspire to in virtue if you're going to maintain your liberty.
Right.
That's a beautiful message.
Yep.
And so we came together united for that. And you know what? What's interesting about that is that like that set me on a journey because I was like, wait a second. what's bringing together Silicon Valley tech bros with fundamentalists, Tennessee, elderly folks, this crazy guy from Florida and all this stuff, what's bringing us all together is something about, I felt like I was seeing like, okay, this is what it looks like if you want to bring in Christian ideas into the public square. I'm not saying that running for office is the solution at all. You hear what I mean? It's a movement about what does it mean to act like Christ in relationship to our public participation in the law creation of our society. Yeah. And that's what set me on a journey. Then I found Rene Girard because I had to figure out why the way I was being taught the theology of Jesus was not giving me enough of an understanding for why Jesus was the founder of the liberty movement of humanity. You see what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I think it was the same thing, for me. It was kind of like, because you grew up as a Christian, and your grandparents tell you, this is right, or what have you, but you don't know why. You can't explain it. You can't explain that, right? And I think so many Christians today are riding on that. It's like autopilot. You know what I'm saying? I don't have really, the answers. I just believe that. Which, I mean, for some, I'm not gonna bash that either. I think people who really believe what they believe, that's enough.
Right.
I have the faith, and that's what all Christians should be working towards. Right, is the faith. But for some of us, it just takes us a little more. I need an explanation.
But we're weaker in faith.
Yeah, we're weaker in faith.
We're like doubting Thomases,
We're doubting Thomases, exactly. And I'm not gonna lie about that or shy away from it. Yes, I am. Yes, and yes, I was. You know what I'm saying? Because I think in the 21st century, it just became much harder to give credibility to what you believe, because it had been bashed for so many years.
Yeah. But see, understanding Christianity understanding Jesus the way most churches and theologies end up giving it to you, unfortunately, and I'm not condemning them because they're wonderful despite what they're telling you about Jesus, And to me, it's like understanding that I never could understand how Jesus thought.
Right.
I was asked to he's in a boat. I'm in a boat, like Peter. There's a storm of life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a mad, raging storm, and I'm scared. It's called life. Mm-hmm. I got to die one day. Mm-hmm. I have to die, and I know that. Mm-hmm. And everybody I love is going to go to the same place. Mm-hmm. And I have to look that in the face, and that's that storm of that boat. And then there's Jesus walking on that storm, and you're like, what? What are you doing? And it seems to me like the way conventional Christianity, without understanding what he did on an anthropological level, it kept me in the boat. Mm-hmm. All I could do was just look out and say, man, you the man. You the man. Look at that. Hercules. Yes. Look at him. Look, he's walking on water. You the man. You the man. That's all I could do.
Right.
But that's not what the story said. The story said, get out of the boat and do it like me. Where do you get that without anthropology? How can you know how to think like Jesus so I can look at the physics establishment, and when they tell me that you have to be able to have millions of degrees to be able to create so-called nuclear fusion, I can say, no, I disagree. And I'm going to walk on water to show you how that looks. In whatever way possible.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't even get you there. You can't get there without an anthropology that tells you. So it's, otherwise, how do I know how to think like Jesus? I remember, have you ever heard this? Whenever you try to imitate Jesus, some church folks will say, well, you're not Jesus.
Right. You're
sacralizing Jesus. You're objectifying Jesus when you do that.
Right.
Because you're like, no, nothing to see here. This is a sacred sacrifice. Right. This is our sacred scapegoat. Right. You don't try to act like that. If you act like that, you're going to get killed. You're going to get shot. You're going to get you're going to get arrested.
Don't touch the ark.
Don't touch it. That is a sacred vessel of our sacrifice. We feel good that we have our specific understanding of Jesus that makes our denomination special from God.
Yeah.
Therefore, don't you ever touch Jesus.
Yep. Yep.
Come on, man.
That's, I mean, it's, I mean, we like to sacralize things, and make it special, make it,
well, Jesus is special,
put varnish on it.
But the way they specialize them is not, is anti.
Well, they make them non-approachable.
Right. Don't imitate him. Because you're going to get shot.
Right.
Worship him. Stay in the boat. Stay in the boat, bro. If you get out and walk like Jesus, first of all, some Christian's going to grab you and say, Peter, you ain't Jesus. Get in the boat.
Right.
You ain't God. Get your tail in the boat, Peter.
Right.
And then the other guy's going to say, if you get out, you're going to drown and you got kids to feed. You can't, Peter, you can't get in the water. Let Jesus do his thing. You say uncle to Jesus, you pay him a tithe, and you keep letting him walk on the water, and you stay safely in the boat because you got kids to feed. And and who do you think you are anyways? Because you ain't Jesus, you're not God. That's what everybody tells you in churchianity instead of Christianity.
But see, billionaires know that, and that's why they are billionaires, because they refute all that. I'm getting out this goddamn boat. You know what I'm saying? Get off me and let me do my thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's so interesting that you said that. That's very good. I like it because it reminds me of that Napoleon Hill stuff.
Yeah.
The law of attraction. And I know that stuff's got some woo-woo stuff, but the guy interviews all these billionaires and they're all like, they have a different mindset for bringing that positive reality that they want. And they use it for bad means. They use it for greed and avarice and all that stuff.
Right.
But they know how the world works, like Jesus did.
Those are the Dr. Faustuses and the Frankensteins, bro.
Yeah.
Dr. Frankensteins. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying all of them.
Dr. Faust, flesh that out for people. What is that?
Dr. Faustus, was the German British story of the chemist, the mad chemist, or the mad scientist, or whatever, who wanted to like have eternal life and power. You know what I'm saying? So he was going to do anything. Oh,
that's the Faustian bargain. That's where you get that.
Yeah, the Faustian bargain. Like I'll sell my soul to the devil to get what I want. You see what I'm saying? That's how they play the game.
I thought you were talking about Dr. Fauci for a second. Okay, gotcha.
No, not Dr. Fauci. No.
I'm trying to get you in the water, man. Come on. Let's get you walking on water.
But it's they're willing to take a risk either way, right? Either take a risk by either following the Christian message and not being ashamed of the Christian message, and really thinking hard about the Christian message, like Peter Thiel. I don't think many of them are on that side. I think most of them are on the side of Dr. Faustus.
So they're using the same things that Jesus did, but they're using them for bad ways, bad things, right?
Right. They will.
So true. It's so true. And all the guys who teach this stuff in the church are all those guys that are making the big jumbo planes and all this stuff and wearing bling bling and.
Yep. Yeah,
so it's this weird thing where it's like there's something true about what you guys are saying, but they're doing it badly because you're doing it to say, hey, look, tithe to me and I'll get you a Jumbotron like I have. It's like, wait a second.
It's a little bit of the satanic induced into the message. That's Dr. Faustus. Yeah. That's Dr. Faustus. That's Merlin. You know what I'm saying? I want the power,
but I don't.
So I'll do whatever I need to do to get the power. I will not. If it means that I have to shed a little blood, or get the baby, sacrifice the little, the baby or something like that, then so be it. You know what I mean? Because that's I'm trying to get to where I need to get to. See what I'm saying? That's how I've always seen it.
Yeah.
It's like, these cats are real Dr. Faustuses and Merlins walking around here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes a lot. Yeah, it's so good that they're imitating it's an antichrist harnessing of what Jesus was doing.
Yeah, and I don't want to be.
We're not condemning them. I mean,
I don't want to be.
It is wrong. I mean, to be a billionaire and using it for bad means is really kind of bad. But
right. You know, but at the same time, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's satanic. You learn how to escape the sacred, and you create a nuclear bomb and you drop it over Nagasaki, and 88. Mm-hmm. You know, what is it? 80,000 Christians and so forth are dead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's some satanic pagan sacrifice.
I mean,
right? The means that allows you to stop burning witches and say, hey, let's get a magnifying glass. Hey, let's find out, oh, there's an atom. Hey, let's figure out how to split that. Hey, all of a sudden, that's because of the inheritance of Christian revelation deconstructing the eternal return of the sacred. Mm-hmm. And then you end up sacrificing,
going right people. Back into you go right back into it. You know what I'm saying? It's so just sad. It like leads into another.
Well, how do we know when we're going into it? You know what I mean? That's the
I don't know, and I don't know. That's why and that this is where I think it's have humility. Try to be aware of when you are scapegoating others. Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, be prayerful. Which is hard to say in this day and age, to tell somebody, be prayerful. That just sounds like a sweet thing to say. It's like, oh yeah, be prayerful. Okay, yeah.
But these billionaires you're talking about, they know about be prayerful in a different way. Right. They may not even believe in prayer as we think, but they're using prayer as it really is. Right.
When I think somebody said in the Bible said, if working hard is the same thing as worship. It's a form of worship, worshiping, God. Well, they're working hard, you know what I'm saying? Day and night.
Because worship is what you're in awe of, right?
Right.
What you want to be. Who do you want to be?
Right.
And it is. So, when Kanye West talks about programming to keep the culture, he talks about the culture, and they're giving us, we can't rap about Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have to stay in the culture, and the culture is all about, that is a kind of programming hypnosis.
Mm-hmm. Of course
because you're saying these are the people that you need to aspire to be.
Exactly.
You need to be a gang member or a drug dealer or chasing girls and treating women horribly.
Yep.
That has an effect.
And I don't know why.
Does Auto have an effect too? If you're shooting people and running them over and doing all the things you can do in Grand Theft Auto, does that imitate games, or do we imitate hip hop music videos more than a video game? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't know, but I would wager that we're definitely influenced, far more by other human beings. You know what I mean?
Virtual depiction.
Yeah. And I think, this is where I think this is just ridiculously, like, it's such a farce, man, that like rappers and stuff like that say, oh, well, I'm not the parent. I don't control what goes on and blah, blah, blah.
Monitor your kids.
Yeah, monitor your kids. Look, man, it's BS, bro. You're telling people you don't have to be like me. But you are the image of the rogue guy that's making money. You know what I'm saying? Like you are the Wild Wild West.
You're taking on a prophet. You're taking on a role as a prophet, right?
Right. As a bad one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so,
Barabbas. They're like Barabbas. Right.
So the
crowd cheers for Barabbas because he's a revolutionary.
Right.
And the crowd cheers for him.
Like the Maccabees. Yeah. So it's you are not. I understand what they're trying to say is that, these are individuals. They should be able to make their own decisions and whatever. The parents should be the ones to influence their behavior more than I should. But I think that that's nonsense at the same time, because it's like kids are influenced. That all kids rebel against their parents in some way or another, right? It's a way for them to create their own identity. Mm-hmm. But of course, kids don't realize that when they do that, they're just taking on another person's identity. It's just taking on, the rapper's identity or the people around them that have directed.
We're sponges. Yeah. We absorb it.
Yeah, they've directed their desire or their attention towards that rapper. You see what I'm saying? Their peers have done that. You know what I'm saying?
Because we desire oneness with others.
Right.
And the objects that the rappers have are the kind of lure that draw us into their orbit.
Right.
Then we end up imitating the rappers or whoever it is, the politicians.
Right. Because you can risk it all and end up in prison, or you can risk it all and end up like Jay-Z and be, a billionaire.
Yeah, or Joe Biden or anything. Yeah.
Like or Joe Biden. You know what I'm saying? You know.
So it's get rich or die trying, like that.
Get rich, right.
So you're either gonna die a noble martyr's death on the outcast prophetic role, or you're gonna get in on the inside like Jay-Z and be doing this stuff all day.
Right. But my thing is, why is that cooler than going out on the limb and doing engineering and creating your own little?
I don't know. I think Elon Musk is probably cooler than Jay-Z nowadays. So maybe your idea is working. You don't think so? No.
That depends on who you're talking to.
I think. You think the average culture, like the average 18-year-old kid living in the inner city, if you say, like, who do you want to be, Jay-Z or do you want to be Elon Musk? And they know both.
I think.
Who do you think they're going to want to be?
I think it depends on the racial demographic. Really? I just honestly do. I don't. And secondly, actually, no, I take that back. I think there's a lot of kids that don't like Elon Musk. And that's because Elon Musk does not, Elon Musk doesn't fit into,
he's not
like there's certain things that he does that might seem cool, like he smoked weed on the Joe Rogan show.
No, but I'm talking about, like, you have your own car company, you got your rocket company. That's kind of cool. It's like Iron Man. Everybody liked Iron Man. Everybody liked Iron Man.
People are not. I don't think the younger generations are thinking that way. You know what I'm saying? They don't see his money. You know what I'm saying? He looks like me right now, walking around with a T-shirt. You understand what I'm saying? You wouldn't know that he was a billionaire. You know what I mean? Unless his name kept coming up. And the only reason why his name keeps coming up now is because he keeps tweeting. Pronouns or, whatever, what I'm saying? Stuff like that. You know what I mean? And so, I think one of the things is, like, he's not an easy person to put in, like, to kind of define, which makes him kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because
he's like something from a James Bond movie, because he's from South Africa. He's got an accent. He's different,
Right.
He's too much of an external mediator, right?
Yeah.
He's too far out for us to imitate, right?
Right. You can't be like him because he's got too different. But
Kanye West wants to be a Tesla. He wants to be a Henry Ford. He says,
And
so that's a role model, right? That can work, right?
There's nothing wrong with having, like, I think you have, like, multiple role models. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think guys can have multiple role models. But the problem I think in particular, I can say, I think for African American males, is that we don't have internal mediators. We lack internal mediators. We all of our mediators are on the television. They're virtual. They're not.
So what do you do in that situation?
You need to get you some. You need to get you some internal mediators, some people.
How do you get them?
Well, I mean, you need. you need more Black people in science, in mathematics, and engineering. Mm-hmm. And and it's amazing to me because we have a lot of those. We've had a lot of those in the past, but they don't get talked about. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of African American mathematicians, in the 1930s and 40s. Mm-hmm. A lot of, I'll say a handful. You know what I'm saying? But they weren't able to be a voice, right? Because it wasn't cool to do those things. It was cooler for Black people to become part of politics. Mm-hmm. That's why we know the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharptons and the MLKs. Mm-hmm. Because it was about speech. It was about what they were saying. They showed up on television. We didn't see the chemists and the biologists and the mathematicians. Right?
The only one that you really learn in history, growing up was George Washington Carver, inventing this and that. And
right. And that's not enough. Mm-hmm. One individual who doesn't look like, he may be Black, but he's so far back in time that this dude don't got nothing in common with me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's what you need. You need people that are living in this day and age who can show up on screen or show up and do demonstrations for kids and stuff like that. And I don't understand why that's something the church could be doing. You got basements. Set up a lab down there. You're laughing at me, bro, but I'm serious.
No, it's good.
I'm dead serious, though. I'm dead serious.
I like it. I agree with it. I think church should be a learning center. I think you should learn how money works. I think you should learn how the pocketbook works. I think you should learn nutrition. I think they should have classes every day of the week. Instead of start using that building. Teach nutrition. Not teach generic nutrition. Find out what the truth is, because it is the truth. Because here's the thing, man. I really hate, and I'm going to go back about the diet thing just for a second. Because it's like the diet thing, it's like there is a truth. Mm-hmm. Because if we're postmodernists, this is low fat, low carb. No, there is an actual objective reality, if we're Christians, about how the body is most effectively, maintained. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think it's in the field of learning the nature of ketosis and lower carbohydrate and staying away from vegetable oils and staying away from sugar and all these different things. And there's a way you can dive into that on the church level. And you just said it. Have a lab. What do you want to do in that lab, Shannon? At church. Look, what do you want to see? Visualize. Let me see. What do you visualize there?
I'm seeing chemistry lab down there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I really like beakers and glass tubes and everything else. You know what I'm saying? I'm seeing.
And the church is kind of helping funding and developing
the church.
That lab.
Yeah. The church is helping to fund that. You know what I'm saying? They've got kids doing experiments, and at the same time,
and that's cool. I like that. Yeah, that's
and I'm not talking about little, just put little watercolors together and stuff like that. No, they're really learning how to compounds and elements and things.
Now, wouldn't that be cool if the Roman Catholic Church created the next nuclear fusion that was power? That's cool. Right. That's the way it should be, right? That's what you're saying with monastic order, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, and I don't know why we can't get that together. It just amazes me that we've cowered,
because the missing link is the anthropology part.
Yeah,
it is, right? Again, if you have a theology of Jesus, then you have a disembodied Jesus, and you don't know who to imitate and how to imitate Jesus and how to think the way he thinks. But when you have an anthropology of Jesus and a theology, now you have the proper balance. Because Jesus says he's both the Son
and the Spirit,
Son of God and Son of Man. If you say, well, I just have a theology of Jesus, then you don't know Jesus. Because Jesus is the Son of Man. He says he's the Son of Man more than he ever says Son of God. So he puts the emphasis for our understanding to be directed towards the anthropological implications of what it means to be man. That you will get when you study his life in the tradition of the biblical text. So when you study his life and then you actually try to imitate it, that will give you the courage to say, wait a second. They're saying, just like they said, don't touch Jesus. He's just for show. He's just for you to worship from far away. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can keep that same suspicion into physics.
Mm-hmm.
See, now you're thinking like Jesus. Now Jesus is healing the leper, and I think I'm going to heal, the revolution and the understanding of the atom. I'm going to touch what they say is sacred.
Right.
And then if you mess with it, you're going to get sacrificed if you go into the Holy of Holies.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, no, we're going to figure this thing out, because that's what Jesus did. Because Jesus took the Holy of Holies and he said, the curtain's open. There's nothing here. It's on the outside. It's on the outside.
Yep.
It's in Golgotha, bro. It's not in the Holy of Holies anymore. The curtain is it's like that's where we get Wizard of Oz. The curtain is unveiled. It's just a little guy there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the thing with billionaires and scientific, greatness. We're like, oh no, if you want to do something in physics, first of all, you got to go to Oxford, or you got to go to some fancy place, and then you got to go get a special spot at a university, and then you got to do TED Talks, then you got to go do a grant, and you got to. It's like, no, you don't. Just go out to Golgotha. Hopefully, you don't get yourself killed, and you know what I mean. That's why nobody goes there. I think because people are afraid.
Yeah.
I like that idea. That's a good visual to leave off on. Scientific lab in the basement of the church.
Indeed, man. That's got to do it, right? Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man.